This will sound very strange, but the apocalyptic fire and emergency evacuation on the island of Maui in Hawaii that the governor said appeared as if a bomb went off, and on the same day the prophetic fourth no-hitter of the season in Major League Baseball against the Washington Nationals team are prophetic signs from God that are predicting that there will be an emergency evacuation after a dirty bomb will explode in Manhattan in New York City on September 25th, 2023, and are predicting that on November 19th, 2023, the U.S. Supreme Court will rule that the 47th President Michelle Obama will be allowed to use the 25th Amendment to appoint Barack Obama as the 51st U.S. Vice President, and are predicting that Barack Obama will become the 48th President in Washington, D.C. on November 21st, 2023, and are predicting that Kamala Harris will die in a fiery plane crash on October 17th, 2023, and are predicting that President Trump will die from a heart attack on November 7th, 2023, and are predicting that Marjorie Taylor Greene will butt heads, will have a face-off with Obama on December 10th, 2023. And these prophetic signs and this Maui fire are predicting that there will be a hit of fire from the sun, a solar storm coronal mass ejection that will hit Earth and knock out the nation's power grid on February 22nd, 2024, and the prophetic fire on Maui and the many dead bodies that were floating in the water from those that had jumped into the water to escape the fire. These prophecies are also predicting that an asteroid will hit Earth and hit the ocean and will cause major tsunamis and kill many people on May 26th, 2024, and are revealing that the resurrection rapture event, the evacuation of God's faithful from the Antichrist, will be on May 26th, 2024. The date that this video was posted proves that these predictions are being made ahead of time, as do these time-stamped emails and forensic notes PDF documents. If you are skeptical for some reason, please email me and I will forward these to you. In God's true big picture of signs, patterns, and connections, he uses the number 36 as symbolism for 666, 666, which is the symbolic number of the Antichrist described in Bible prophecy. The reason is 36 hints at 3 sixes, and 36 is 6 times 6, and 36 is 2 times 18, and 18 is 6 plus 6 plus 6. And the 36th triangular number, which in a triangle of numbers, the last number in the 36th row is 666. And 1 plus 2 plus 3 plus 4 all the way up to 36 equals 666. On August 9th, 2023, the state of Hawaii issued a state of emergency declaration, and it was initially reported that in the fire in Lahaina on Maui there were 36 deaths. August 9th, 2023 was exactly 15 years and 3 months after Obama's infamous 57 instead of 50 states gaffe. Obama's 50 states gaffe was exactly 50 years after the End of the World TV episode, in which the plot involved a man named Trump in an Old West town selling the townsfolk a wall of security. Trump's presidency and election campaign were synonymous with him selling his border wall of security. in January of 2019, during the government shutdown over the controversy of funding Trump's border wall of security, the internet and all of the mainstream media outlets were talking about this 1958 TV episode involving the character named Trump.
Which is getting a lot of attention online.
I don't even know how you guys dug this up.
I know, it's a Western TV show from the 1950s. It was called Trackdown.
Right.
And it aired on CBS,
I know.
right? And it features, this is true, it features a con man, and the con man's name is Trump. And that con man tries to justify building a wall. Roll the clip.
I am the only one. Trust me. I can build a wall around your homes that nothing will penetrate.
What do we do? How do we save ourselves?
You ask, how do you build that wall? You ask, and I'm here to tell you.
You're a liar, Trump.
What?
Like, even the I am the only one, which we heard in the campaign speeches, you know, the president speak like that. I'm the only one that can take care of this problem.
That was the moment when I thought, this isn't real. Okay, I don't know, this is some kind of digital satire.
Yeah.
The con man is called Trump, and he says, you need a wall to save your lives, and only I can build it. So we're watching this thinking, this is not real, we can't include this, but we're curious enough to find out how much of it is real. The whole thing is real. It aired in 1958.
Yeah.
A con man called Trump tries to persuade people in a town that there is a meteor shower coming. The only protection is a wall that only he can build. I mean, no matter what you think about President Trump's wall,
other than you're under arrest,
it's crazy.
We're going to think what you thought, this can't be real.
Yeah.
CBS did confirm that this was a real episode that aired on the network May 9th, 1958.
The date that the internet and the media began talking about this episode was January 10th, 2019. The date January 10th is 110, which hints at the number 110. It is said in the Bible that Joshua died at the age of 110. In archaic English, the word trump means trumpet or the sounding of a trumpet. Joshua led the Hebrews around the walls of security of the ancient city of Jericho while blowing trumpets before the walls of security collapsed in God's judgment. January 10th, 2019 was the day that Joshua trees were illegally cut down in Joshua Tree National Park. It was a national news story, and it was because of the government shutdown over the controversy of funding Trump's border wall of security. Also on January 10th, 2019, President Trump visited his border wall of security. Hawaii is the 50th state. Barack Obama is from the 50th state, which makes his 50 states gaffe all the more remarkable. The 44th president also grew up in Indonesia for 4 years, and Indonesia is one of 57 states in the Islamic Organization of Cooperation, which makes this 57 states instead of 50 states gaffe even more remarkable. His 50 states gaffe was exactly 50 years after the episode titled End of the World aired, and his gaffe is 144,000 hours, which is the equivalent of exactly 6,000 days before the end, the second coming of Lord Jesus Christ on the Day of Atonement on October 12, 2024. The number 144,000 is a prominent prophetic number in the book of Revelation, the prophetic book about the end times. This story of the Maui fire is the worst natural disaster in the 50th state's history, and it is about an apocalyptic, as in the end times, fire that had people running for their lives and jumping into the sea. 15 years and 3 months hints at the 153 fish that were caught in the net in Jesus' last miracle, which was symbolic of the end of the age of fishing for men, when Peter jumped from the boat and into the Sea of Galilee. People in the fire in historic Lahaina, Maui, had to be rescued in a boat from the sea. The number 50 is symbolic of the church. as the Feast of Pentecost is symbolic of the church, and Pentecost literally means 50th day. This fire in the 50th state that hints at the 153 fish that symbolizes the end of the age of fishing for men is a warning of judgment for the church. And it was Peter that jumped into the sea, and it was Peter that said that judgment begins with the church, and that this coming judgment would be symbolized by fire instead of water. This warning from God for the church is a warning of the Antichrist, who is from Hawaii, the 50th state, and who was president from 2009 until 2017. This is why this apocalyptic fire and evacuation and rescue in the 50th state occurred 9 months and 17 days before the rescue and rapture of God's faithful on May 26, 2024, which is Pentecost in the calendar that watches for new moons, and Pentecost means 50th day. Hawaii is known for its rainbows. The rainbow is described in Genesis 9:17. Another reason for the 9 months and 17 days connection. Obama, who is from Hawaii, is the rainbow president, who famously lit up the White House in rainbow colors on the day that the Supreme Court ruled in favor of gay marriage. Also, 9 times 17 equals 153. Therefore, 9 months and 17 days from August 9th, 2023 confirms the 15 years and 3 months, which hints at 153, to August 9th, 2023, from Obama's prophetic gaffe on May 9th, 2008. The number 50 is symbolic of the church and God's people. From Obama's 50 states gaffe, which was exactly 50 years after the TV episode End of the World, it is 15 years and 3 months, which hints at the number 153, which is 9 times 17, to the apocalyptic fire in the 50th state. And from the apocalyptic fire and evacuation and rescue in the 50th state, it is 9 months and 17 days to Pentecost, the 50th day, the day of the resurrection, rapture, rescue. In the Bible, walls are symbolism for God's protection and wall of security for a people. The rescue rapture of God's faithful will occur on May 26, 2024. The same day, it is predicted that an asteroid will hit Earth, and this asteroid will hit an ocean which will cause major tsunamis and kill many, many people, which is why in this prophetic sign, in this Maui fire, it is said that out of desperation, people jumped over the sea wall and into the ocean, and many people drowned. Many people drowned in the ocean due to this apocalyptic emergency evacuation fire on Maui. One reason why the Antichrist, the 44th president, grew up in Indonesia for 4 years is that it hints at the Indian Ocean tsunami in 2004. 220,000 people were killed in the tsunami. Barack Obama is from Hawaii and Indonesia, which is the reason for his 57 instead of 50 states gaffe, as Indonesia is one of the 57 states in the Islamic Organization of Cooperation. And so from this prophetic TV episode involving a man named Trump selling a wall of security titled End of the World, we have these connections through Obama's 57 instead of 50 states gaffe and the people that jumped over the sea wall into the ocean and drowned in Hawaii to the date it is predicted that an asteroid will hit Earth and cause major tsunamis that will kill many, many people. And this event will be part of the end of the world, the end of the age, before the return of Lord Jesus Christ soon after this. The Apostle Peter in the Bible said that the next coming judgment would be symbolized by fire instead of water, and the first judgment is described in the fall of Adam and Eve out of paradise. As I will explain in a minute, the prophetic significance of the Paradise Fire. The Paradise Fire, otherwise known as the Camp Fire, in 2018 began on November 8th, 2018, exactly 57 months before the Lahaina Maui fire began. This 57 months connection to the fire in the 50th state is also for the purpose of pointing to Obama's 57 instead of 50 states gaffe, which is for the purpose of pointing to Indonesia, where the Indian Ocean tsunami emanated. And again, this is why the deaths in the ocean and the rescue from the ocean in the boat, which is why the resurrection, rapture, and rescue of God's people will occur on the same day. It is predicted that an asteroid will hit an ocean and cause massive tsunamis and kill many, many people. What is astounding confirmation of this is that this asteroid hit is described in Bible prophecy in Revelation chapter 8, verse 11, and this Lahaina fire began exactly 8 months and 11 days after the first eruption of the world's largest volcano in nearly 40 years on the big island of Hawaii. Mount Mauna Loa erupted 8 months and 11 days before this prophetic fire in Hawaii, and this 8 months and 11 days is confirmation that this Lahaina fire is pointing to the asteroid hit that is described in Revelation 8:11. August 9th, 2023 was also the day that the state government of Hawaii issued a state of emergency for the entirety of the state. The governor of Hawaii said it appeared like a quote-unquote bomb went off. Dr. Riza Dinesh, who runs an urgent care center and mobile clinic in Lahaina, said it was like a quote-unquote war zone. Hawaii is known for its rainbows. The rainbow is God's sign regarding judgment in the book of Genesis in the account of Noah's flood. God gave Noah a 7 days warning to load the ark for their rescue, and this was followed by 40 days of increasing floodwaters. This was a total of 47 days. In the Maui fire, people jumped into the sea and had to be rescued by a boat, which is a parallel with the ark. Noah and his family were rescued in a boat and were evacuated. The story of this fire is about the evacuation of Lahaina, as well as the evacuation of 14,000 tourists from Maui. The governor described the scene as being as if a bomb went off. August 9th, 2023 is 47 days before it is predicted a bomb will go off in Manhattan in New York City. A dirty bomb that will trigger a mass evacuation. The governor's name is Josh Green. Josh hints at Joshua in the Bible and the walls of security that collapsed in God's judgment on Jericho. In God's true big picture of signs, patterns, and connections, which is only being explained on this channel, the number 9 is the most important number, as from the Bible, the number 9 symbolizes God's judgment. The following day, after 36 deaths were reported, there was an additional 19 deaths reported, and 19 is also symbolic of God's judgment. The number 10 is symbolic of God's perfect order, and 9 plus 10 equals 19, and so 19 symbolizes God's perfect judgment. 36 plus 19 is 55, and on this day there were a total of 55 deaths, and the number 55 is the 9th semi-prime number. A semi-prime number is a number that is only divided by 2 other prime numbers. It is predicted that Kamala Harris will die in a fiery plane crash near the I-55 highway. 1,656 hours, which hints at the number of years between Adam and Noah's flood, 1,656 years. And 1,656 hours is the equivalent of 69 days, which hints at the most central prophecy in the Bible in Daniel chapter 9, the 70 weeks prophecy that is divided into a period of 69 weeks, followed by the final 70th week, which is symbolic of the end times period and the Antichrist. And so, in other words, 69 days hints at this final period of the Antichrist, who is from Hawaii. And Kamala Harris's plane crash will lead to the rise of the Antichrist, Barack Obama, through her replacement, and her predicted fiery crash near the I-55 highway is predicted to be 1,656 hours after the state of emergency and 36 deaths on August 9th, 2023. After the prophetic 36 deaths and 55 deaths, the Lahaina Maui wildfire was the second deadliest U.S. wildfire in modern U.S. history after the Camp Fire, also known as the Paradise, California wildfire. The Maui fire has now become the deadliest wildfire in modern U.S. history, and the Paradise, California fire is now the second deadliest wildfire in modern U.S. history. It is predicted that the president from Hawaii will serve a second term after a fiery plane crash in which Kamala Harris will die. A second presidency is what is hinted at with the second deadliest wildfire and this fire in Hawaii. The story of the Paradise, California wildfire is also about a horrific apocalyptic fire and evacuation. And the Paradise Fire was said to be hell on earth, and that fire also burned a town named Helltown, California, next to Paradise, California. And this fire occurred on November 8th, 2018, which was exactly 4 years and 9 months before the prophetic Lahaina Maui fire, and 4 years and 9 months hints at the number 49, an important number in the most central prophecy in the Bible that regards the timing of the Antichrist in the end times period, and also the Antichrist will become the president again through the death of the 49th Vice President, Kamala Harris, in a fiery plane crash. And this fire on Maui is near the Haleakale National Park, which is known as being a moon landscape. And the 49th Vice President, Kamala Harris, was born exactly 4 years and 9 months before the first American landed on the moon. The moon is symbolic of Christ, as the sun's light is too bright for us to gaze at, but we can gaze at the sun's light reflected off of the moon. This is why watching for the timing of the moon is important in the Bible, and why watching for prophetic moon signs is symbolic of watching for the timing of the Lord's return. This 4 years and 9 months connection to the fire in the 50th state is the equivalent of 57 months. This 57 months connection between the Paradise Fire and the fire in the 50th state hints at Obama's 57 instead of 50 states gaffe, which, as explained, also connected to the fire in the 50th state. This 4 years and 9 months connection to the Hawaii fire hints at the predicted fiery plane crash of the 49th Vice President, who was the senator from California, which will lead to the return to the White House of the Antichrist, who is from Hawaii. This 4 years and 9 months connection hints at the number 49 in the most central prophecy in the Bible that regards the timing of the arrival of the Antichrist. This prophecy is known as the 70 weeks prophecy, which is why the prophetic fire in Lahaina in Hawaii on August 8, 2023 was exactly 70 months after the start of the California firestorm fires on October 8, 2017. The 70 months connection is confirmed with another prophetic sign that occurred on August 9, 2023, which was the Philadelphia baseball team's 0-7 win, and Philadelphia is symbolic of one of the 7 churches in the book of Revelation. They won the game 0-7 in a no-hitter over the team from Washington, D.C., and after the game, the pitcher's record went to a record of 7-7. This sign will be explained more in a minute, but August 9th, 2023 was also exactly 7 times 7 years, which is 49 years, after Richard Nixon resigned and Gerald Ford became the only president never to have been elected president or vice president. He was appointed through the use of the 25th Amendment, just like how Barack Obama will become the president again without being elected. The October 2017 Northern California fires, also known as the California firestorm, hinted at the fiery crash of the senator from California that will bring in the Antichrist, who was the 44th president. This is why the California firestorm lasted 4 days and killed 44 people. After the 3 major hurricanes to hit the U.S. in 2017, the California firestorm was the 4th witness confirmation from God that the Great American Eclipse over America in 2017 was a warning of judgment destruction for the nation. This is why the California firestorm that killed 44 people over 4 days was 44 days after Category 4 Hurricane Harvey made landfall at Corpus Christi, Texas, which is Latin for Body of Christ, and then dumped 4 feet of water over 4 days on the 4th biggest city in the U.S., Houston. Pacific Gas and Electric reported that red flag conditions existed in 44 of the 49 counties in its service area, and this hinted at the 44th president's return to the White House through the fiery plane crash and death of the senator from California, who is the 49th U.S. vice president. According to CAL FIRE, in the California firestorm, there were 250 fires, and they burned 250,000 acres. This hinted at the 25th Amendment that Michelle Obama is predicted to use to appoint Barack Obama as the 51st U.S. Vice President on November 19, 2023. In the Bible, the prophet Elijah called down fire from heaven on Mount Carmel in Israel in a demonstration of the true God of Israel. The 250 fires that burned 250,000 acres and killed 44 people over 4 days began exactly 2,500 days after the Mount Carmel fire in Israel began, that also killed 44 people over 4 days. This is because the 44th president and Antichrist will also be presiding over a world government that will make Jerusalem an international city. 250 fires burned 250,000 acres in the California firestorm, 2,500 days after the Mount Carmel fire, and this hints at the use of the 25th Amendment after the death of the senator from California in a fiery plane crash that will lead to the Antichrist rising in power. The California firestorm connected to the fire in Hawaii, where the Antichrist is from, and as I will now explain, the state of emergency declared in Hawaii in turn connects to the date it is predicted that the 25th Amendment will be used to appoint Obama on November 19, 2023. The number 144 is a prophetic number from the book of Revelation that is about the end times and the Antichrist. Obama is predicted to become the president again after he is appointed through the 25th Amendment on November 19, 2023. November 19th, 2023 is 14 weeks and 4 days, which hints at the number 144, after a state of emergency was declared in Hawaii and 36 deaths, which again hints at 666, the number of the Antichrist, were initially reported on August 9th, 2023, after the prophetic Lahaina fire in Hawaii, and Hawaii is where Obama is from. God uses pictures on the pitching mound as symbolism for the Antichrist on the Temple Mount in Bible prophecy. On the same day as the state of emergency was declared and the first 36 deaths were reported, the pitcher for Philadelphia pitched the 14th no-hitter in Philadelphia's history, and it was the 4th in the Major League Baseball season. The no-hitter was against the team from Washington, D.C. This 14th in history and 4th of the season against the Washington team confirms the 14 weeks and 4 days connection to the day that the Antichrist will return to power in Washington. This pitcher was the 4th pitcher out of 4 pitchers from his high school to pitch a no-hitter in Major League Baseball, and there have only been 4 pitchers from his high school who pitched in Major League Baseball. This 4th pitcher on the pitching mound out of 4 pitchers, on the day of the state of emergency declaration in Hawaii, hints at the 44th president and Antichrist who is from Hawaii. The first of 4 pitchers to throw a no-hitter did so on July 1st, 1920, which was 4 months and 11 days before the first commissioner of baseball took office. 4 months and 11 days hints at 4 times 11 equals 44. In a moment of crisis after the 1919 Chicago Black Sox World Series cheating scandal, Judge Kennesaw Mountain, which is a high place, and the word high place is Bama in Hebrew, Landis, was given unchecked power over every person in baseball. Just like how in a moment of crisis, the Antichrist will be given unchecked power over every person in America. The cheating Chicago White Sox hints at the president who is from Chicago returning to power through a shoplifted election. The first commissioner of baseball assumed power on November 12, 1920, exactly 666 days after the 18th, which hints at 6 + 6 + 6, amendment was ratified, which restricted people's ability to buy and sell alcohol. Just like how the Antichrist will restrict the ability of people who refuse to take the mark of the Antichrist thing, and you know what I'm talking about, the thing that you can't talk about, from buying and selling food. The Church of Philadelphia is one of the 7 churches mentioned in the book of Revelation. The score in the no-hitter was 0-7, and with the win, the pitcher for Philadelphia went to a record of 7-7. This 7-7 record on the day of the fire in Hawaii was exactly 7 times 7 years after President Nixon resigned due to a scandal, which hinted at the Black Sox World Series scandal, and Gerald Ford became the first unelected president on August 9, 1974. Just like how Obama will become an unelected president. President Trump, God's trumpet that he uses to trumpet and highlight his prophetic signs, visited Paradise, California on the 666th day after Obama left office. President Trump's political status initially rose due to his calling out, his trumpeting, of Obama's ineligibility to be president because he was born in Kenya. 14 people, including 2 children, were rescued from the sea that had jumped in to escape the flames. After 9/11, 14 cows were donated from a Maasai tribe in the Kenyan savannah near where Obama was born. In the Bible, the Egyptian king is symbolic of the Antichrist, and Joseph interpreted the Egyptian king's dream about 14 cows. These 14 cows in the dream symbolize the end times period of the Antichrist. The 36, which hints at 666, the number of the Antichrist, death toll, and state of emergency on August 9th, 2023, is 104 days, which hints at the number 14, before it is predicted that Obama will become the 48th president. He will serve a second presidency, and this is why the Maui wildfire was the second deadliest wildfire in modern U.S. history, and why it was 2 children in the 14 people who were rescued from the sea. It was also 14,000 tourists that evacuated Maui, which is more confirmation of the 104 days from this fire in Hawaii, where Obama is from, to the date it is predicted that Obama will become the president for a second presidency. And 104 days, which hints at the number 14, hints at how Barack Obama is from and was born in the Kenyan savannah, from which a Maasai tribe from the Kenyan savannah donated 14 cows to America after 9/11. Also on August 9th, 2023, the 14th no-hitter in the history of the Philadelphia Phillies baseball team was thrown. It was the first no-hitter suffered by the Washington Nationals since the team relocated to Washington, D.C. in 2005. God uses pitchers on the pitching mound as symbolism for the Antichrist on the Temple Mount described in Bible prophecy. This 14th no-hitter against the Washington Nationals is confirmation that 104 days after August 9th, 2023, the Antichrist will become the president in Washington, D.C. It was the 4th no-hitter of the season in Major League Baseball, and a main aspect of the news story was how it was only the second game the pitcher pitched for Philadelphia after arriving in Philadelphia to play for his 4th Major League Baseball team in his career. God uses pitchers on the pitching mound as symbolism for the Antichrist on the Temple Mount described in Bible prophecy. The 4th no-hitter of the season and the 4th team played for in the pitcher's career is confirmation that the 44th president is the Antichrist. The Antichrist will persecute the church, and because the Church of Philadelphia is one of the 7 churches that Jesus wrote to in the book of Revelation, the 14th no-hitter thrown by the Philadelphia Phillies is a symbolic warning of judgment for the church. In the 7 letters to the 7 churches, it is only the Church of Philadelphia that Jesus said would be rescued and raptured from the persecution from the Antichrist. And as was explained, the date of this win for Philadelphia is a prophetic 9 months and 17 days before the date of the resurrection rapture on Pentecost, the 50th day. This win for Philadelphia, a city that is named after one of the 7 churches in the book of Revelation, was their 7th win in their last 10 games. And Philadelphia won the game 7-0. The 14th no-hitter hints at the 14 cows that are symbolic of the end times period of the Antichrist. The 14 cows in the Egyptian king's dream that Joseph interpreted were divided into 7 cows of prosperity and 7 cows of famine. The Egyptian king gave authority to Joseph to rule over the food supply, and the Antichrist will rule over the food supply in the symbolic 7 years of the end times. After the win, the pitcher who pitched the 14th no-hitter for Philadelphia had a record of 7 wins and 7 losses on the season. This 14th no-hitter and 7 wins and 7 losses hints at the 14 cows that were divided into 2 sets of 7 cows. 7 cows of prosperity followed by 7 cows of famine. God uses pitchers on the pitching mound as symbolism for the Antichrist on the Temple Mount described in Bible prophecy. This 14th no-hitter in Philadelphia's history and this pitcher on the pitching mound's record of 7 wins and 7 losses hints at 7 plus 7 equals 14, and this is confirmation of the 104 days connection, which hints at the number 14 from this no-hitter to the date it is predicted that the Antichrist will become the president. God uses pitchers on the pitching mound to symbolize the Antichrist on the Temple Mount, who will persecute the church through rationing food that will only be permitted to those who have taken the mark of the Antichrist. The mark of the Antichrist is symbolized by the number 22. The inverse of the mark of the Antichrist is described in the book of Ezekiel in chapter 9, and it would have been the Tav mark, the Tav letter in the Hebrew alphabet. And the Tav is the last letter and 22nd letter in the Hebrew alphabet. The mark of the Antichrist is described in the last book of the Bible, the book of Revelation, which is the 22nd book out of 22 books in the Bible that have a total of 22 chapters. The Philadelphia pitcher's jersey number is 22. The prophetic final out of the game that sealed the no-hitter for pitcher number 22 was against Washington Nationals batter number 22. The out was a pop-up fly ball to the rookie center fielder, who is 22 years old. This center fielder's jersey number is 18. 18 hints at 6 plus 6 plus 6, the number of the Antichrist in Bible prophecy. It also hints at the 18th Amendment and the prohibition of purchasing alcohol in the 1920s, which is symbolic of the coming prohibition from buying food for those who refuse the mark of the Antichrist. Pitcher number 22 made 5 strikeouts in the game, leaving 22 outs for his defense, 9 of which were made by the 22-year-old center fielder, which hints at the inverse of the mark of the Antichrist, the Tav mark, the 22nd letter in the Hebrew alphabet that is described in Ezekiel chapter 9. This 22-year-old center fielder who caught the prophetic final out fly ball hit by player number 22 that was pitched by player number 22 made history in this game by being the first outfielder since 1900 to make 9 outs in a game. The number 9 is symbolic of God's judgment, and these 9 outs by the Philadelphia outfielder made this a warning of judgment for the church. In the letters to the 7 churches, Jesus said that he hates the doctrine of the Nicolaitans, and that he is coming to make war with the sword of his mouth on those who teach this doctrine and have the works that are a product of this doctrine. In this no-hitter on August 9th, 2023, the star player for Philadelphia, Nick Castellanos, hit his 199th and 200th home run. The name Nick hints at the Nicolaitan doctrine. The 199th home run hints at judgment, and the 200th home run hints at the second coming of the Judge, Lord Jesus Christ. It was also Nick's second home run of the night. His 200th home run was his second home run of the night, which hints at 22. And this followed his 199th home run, which hints at the number 9. And therefore this hinted at the inverse of the mark of the Antichrist that is described in Ezekiel chapter 9. which would have been a Tav mark, the 22nd letter in the Hebrew alphabet. And therefore this is a sign from God that communicates that the mark of the Antichrist is judgment from God for the church, a testing of faith for the church because of its Nicolaitan doctrine and the works that are a product of its doctrine that Jesus said he hates and is coming to make war on with the sword of his mouth on those that teach and have the works that are a product of this doctrine, which is the doctrine of the vast majority of the church today, including and especially the American Evangelical Church, which is the Church of Laodicea, which is why the vast majority of quote-unquote Christians have already taken the mark of the Antichrist, which is the thing, and you know what I'm talking about, the thing that you can't talk about. It is the thing, and the purpose of this prediction being made in this video that is from God is to prove this. Make no mistake. The reason why God has given me a voice through this prediction is to prove this. End of controversy. There is no more debate. The thing is the mark of the Antichrist, the snake bite. I want to keep this video short, and so make sure, especially if you are Christian, that you watch the 23 church signs video on this channel, and also the Muhammad Ali, Jim Brown deaths video. Nick is number 8, and the 200th home run was hit off of Washington pitcher number 1. The pitch from player number 1 for Washington that was hit by player number 8 hinted at 18, 6 plus 6 plus 6, the Antichrist in Washington, and the 18th Amendment. The pitch to Nick for Philadelphia by the pitcher from Washington was a 4-seam fastball, and the score was 0-4. This identified the Antichrist who will persecute the church for its Nicolaitan doctrine as the 44th president in Washington. The home run changed the score from 0-4 to 0-5. This hinted at the 54th Massachusetts Regiment in the Civil War, who were not paid the equivalent $13 per month that the white Union soldiers were paid. This hints at the coming oppressive minority law of restricting the purchase of food from those who refuse to take the mark of the Antichrist through programmable digital currency and controlling their bank accounts. The pitcher went to a record of 7-7, and the team won 0-7. This was on August 9th, 2023, exactly 7 times 7 years after President Richard Nixon resigned due to the Watergate scandal. This was right after the smoking gun of his recorded conversations. The smoking gun in the Watergate scandal and Nixon's resignation was exactly 7 times 7 years before the smoking fire in Hawaii and the pitcher's record of 7-7. Gerald Ford became the first unelected president on August 9th, 1974, exactly 7 times 7 years before the fire in Hawaii. Likewise, Obama, who is from Hawaii, will be unelected and will overcome the 22nd Amendment, which is another reason why the pitcher was number 22 and the final prophetic out was against batter number 22, and the out was made by the rookie 22-year-old, and Nick, as in Nicolaitan doctrine, Castellanos, hit 2 home runs and his 200th home run. The Antichrist is the 44th president. In the 44th presidential election, in 1960, Richard Nixon won 222 electoral votes. It was the first presidential election for the state of Hawaii. God uses firsts for prophetic signs, and Hawaii was also the first state to legalize abortion. In the 44th presidential election, the first presidential election for Hawaii, Hawaii voted more Republican than the national average. The only other time this happened was in 1972, and it was also for Republican Richard Nixon. The Hawaii election in 1960 was controversial, and the margin was supposedly only 115 votes. The delay in recounting the vote was cited as a precedent by supporters of Gore in 2000 and Trumpet, God's Trumpet, in 2020. The 44th presidential election in 1960 was the closest presidential election in the 20th century. In the popular vote, Kennedy supposedly only received 119,000 more votes than Nixon. The number 119 hints at 9/11 and the warning of God's judgment and destruction on 9/11 in 2001. On 9/11 in 2001, 110 stories of the Twin Towers collapsed and engendered an earthquake that cracked the foundation of Federal Hall, where George Washington was inaugurated at the founding of the nation. Federal Hall is located on Wall Street, which was named after a 9-foot-high wall of security that the Dutch built to keep the British and the Indians out. In the Bible, Joshua died at the age of 110 after he led the Hebrews around the walls of security of the ancient city of Jericho before they collapsed in God's judgment, and God's judgment is symbolized by the number 9. The number 1109 hints at a pairing of 110 and 9. This is why John F. Kennedy was shot in the head and killed exactly 1109 days after the election in which Kennedy supposedly received 119,000 more votes than Nixon. It is widely believed that in the 44th presidential election in 1960, the states of Illinois and Texas were shoplifted for Kennedy, and therefore the election was shoplifted. You know what I mean by shoplifted. The 44th president will become the president again through the shoplifted election, just like the 44th presidential election with Kennedy and Nixon, and Obama will be appointed instead of elected, just like Nixon's successor, Gerald Ford, after the smoking gun of the Watergate scandal. In the Bible, judgment on a people symbolically begins at the gate. Obama is from Hawaii, and this is why the controversial election in the state of Hawaii, Hawaii's first presidential election, was the 44th presidential election. The shoplifted 44th presidential election involved Nixon, and this is why the smoking fire in Hawaii, with desperate people jumping into the water, on the same day that the pitcher on the pitching mound, which is symbolism for the Antichrist on the Temple Mount, who went to a record of 7 and 7, was exactly 7 times 7 years after the climactic end of the Watergate scandal with the smoking gun recorded tapes and Nixon's resignation and Ford's unelected ascendancy to the White House. The name of the governor of Hawaii is Josh Green. Josh alludes to Joshua in the Bible, who led the Hebrews around the walls of security of Jericho before they collapsed in God's judgment. Obama is from Hawaii. The name Green alludes to Marjorie Taylor Greene. The number 42 is symbolic of the 42 months period of the Antichrist in Bible prophecy. The number 123 is the 42nd semi-prime number, which means that it is a number that can only be divided by 2 other prime numbers. The 36, which hints at 666, the number of the Antichrist, reported deaths on August 9, 2023, in the Hawaii fire, on the same day that the baseball team from Washington, D.C. was no hit, is 123 days before it is predicted that Marjorie Taylor Greene will shoot Obama in the head in Washington, D.C. This is also the reason for this connection back to Hawaii's first presidential election in the 44th presidential election between Nixon and Kennedy, who was shot in the head 1,109 days after the 44th presidential election, in which Kennedy supposedly received 119,000 more votes than Nixon. Also, Kennedy was shot in the head in Dallas, Texas, and Dallas in God's signs is symbolism for the capital of evangelicalism and the American Evangelical Church, which God is demonstrating judgment warning signs through men named Nick, which is why the prophetic home runs by Nick Castellanos for Philadelphia are 123 days before it is predicted that the Antichrist, Barack Obama, will be shot in the head, after which he will miraculously recover. President Kennedy was the 35th president, and on the day that Josh Green, the governor of Hawaii, reported 36 deaths, the Dow Jones Index, the stock market index, closed at 35,123, closed at 35,123.36. And this is 123 days before it is predicted that Marjorie Taylor Greene will shoot Obama in the head. 35,123.36 hints at the 35th president who was shot in the head, just like how Greene will shoot Obama in the head 123 days after Governor Greene reported 36 deaths. Marjorie Taylor Greene is the representative of the 14th district of the 4th state, which hints at the number 144, a prophetic number in the book of Revelation. This fire on Maui, in which people jumped into the water, connected to Watergate and Nixon, and the 44th presidential election that was shoplifted from Nixon. Hawaii became a state in 1959. The prophetic fire in Hawaii is exactly 144 weeks after the 59th presidential election was shoplifted from Trumpet, God's trumpet. The number 59 is the 17th prime number. God pairs 9 and 17 together to confirm the signs and connections, and to point to the president who was president from 2009 until 2017. The 59th presidential election for the White House in Washington, D.C. that was shoplifted from Trumpet, God's trumpet, connected to the Hawaii fire, and this was on the same day that the baseball team from Washington, D.C. was no hit, when the outfielder made history by making 9 outs in the game. These 9 outs pairs with the 59th presidential election, as the number 59 is the 17th prime number. In turn, the 9 outs in the no-hitter on the 9th of the month and the day of the apocalyptic Maui fire is exactly 90 days before it is predicted that Trumpet will die from a heart attack. 90 days is the equivalent of 2,160 hours, and 216 is 6 times 6 times 6, which hints at the number of the Antichrist. Which is why the day of 36 deaths, which hints at 666, in the prophetic fire is 2,160 hours before the predicted death of Trumpet. In archaic English, the word trump means trumpet, or the sounding of a trumpet. President Trump is God's trumpet that he uses to trumpet and highlight his prophetic signs that are communicating judgment warning. The fire in Lahaina, Maui began on August 8, 2023, exactly 9 times 9 months after President Trump was elected by 77 electoral votes. On the day of the death toll of 36, which again hints at the number 666, the number of the Antichrist, the day of the 36 reported deaths in the fire, the Philadelphia pitcher pitched a no-hitter and went to a record of 7-7. And again, this was exactly 9 times 9 months after President Trump was elected by 77 electoral votes. In this no-hitter, the outfielder made history in this game as the first since 1900 to make 9 outs. This was exactly 9 times 9 months after Trump was elected by 77 electoral votes. And this record of 7-7 and this 9 outs by the outfielder was 90 days, which hints at the number 9, to the date it is predicted that President Trump will die at the age of 77. And so this is an astounding connection from the day that Trump won by 77 electoral votes to the date it is predicted of the last Trump sign, the date that President Trump will die from a heart attack at the age of 77. The number 9 symbolizes God's judgment. From Trump's 77 electoral votes, it is 9 times 9 months exactly to 9 outs, followed by 90 days to the day that Trump will die at 77. The number 9 is the most important number in God's true big picture of signs, patterns, and connections, which is only being explained on this channel. And on August 13th, the death toll in the fire was reported at 93. The sun is 93 million miles away from Earth. In the Bible, the number 9 is symbolic of God's judgment, and the reported 93 deaths in the Lahaina, Hawaii fire is 9 months and 9 days before it is predicted that Earth will be hit by fire from the sun that is 93 million miles away, which will cause catastrophic power outages on February 22nd, 2024. As was explained, the prophetic fire and evacuation in the 50th state is Noah's flood symbolism, as is 47 days Noah's flood symbolism. The fire and evacuation that the governor said was like a bomb went off connects with 47 days to the date it is predicted that a dirty bomb will go off in Manhattan that will trigger a mass evacuation. A dirty bomb is made of nuclear bomb material, and uranium is used in nuclear bombs. Uranium is named after the planet Uranus. Uranus has an orbital period of 84 years, and the Antichrist, who is from the 50th state, was born on the date 8-4. Exactly 84 days before the 36 deaths, which hints at 666, were reported in the Hawaii fire, and evacuation into the ocean was the day of the release of the new 3D images of the Titanic at the bottom of the ocean on May 17, 2023. The new images of the Titanic that allow us to see and understand better what the sunken Titanic looks like is symbolic of God's hand behind America's history becoming more visible and understood through his prophetic signs. The quote-unquote unsinkable Titanic sunk on its maiden voyage, which was a sign from God regarding man's hubris. The prophetic fire and evacuation into the ocean in the 50th state connects to the new images of the Titanic and its watery grave at the bottom of the ocean, and the release of the new Titanic images were in turn exactly 50 years after the Watergate hearings began in Congress on May 17, 1973. In God's signs, pitchers on the pitching mound symbolize the Antichrist on the Temple Mount. The pitcher on the pitching mound, who pitched the 4th no-hitter of the season, was the 4th Major League Baseball pitcher from his high school in California to pitch a no-hitter in Major League Baseball. There are only 4 pitchers from his high school who became Major League Baseball pitchers. The first of the 4 pitchers from Fullerton Union High School to pitch a no-hitter did so on July 1st, 1920. This was 4 months and 11 days before the first commissioner of baseball, Judge Kennesaw Mountain Landis, on November 12, 1920. In a moment of crisis in Major League Baseball after the Chicago Black Sox World Series scandal, this commissioner of baseball was given unchecked power over every person in baseball. This is symbolism for the Antichrist from Chicago, who, in a moment of crisis, will be given unchecked power over every person in America. This 4 months and 11 days connection between the first of the 4 pitchers to pitch a no-hitter to the first commissioner of baseball hints at 4 times 11 equals 44 and the 44th president. The first commissioner of baseball died in 1944, and I believe that was also the year that he was inducted into the Hall of Fame, the Baseball Hall of Fame. This commissioner took power on November 12, 1920. This first commissioner of baseball, which is Antichrist symbolism, his name is Mountain Landis, and Obama's name means mountain. The word Bama in Hebrew means high place, which in the Bible is a euphemism for the false religious worship the Jews would do to false gods on the tops of mountains. This first commissioner of baseball took power 666 days after the 18th Amendment was ratified on January 16, 1919. The 18th Amendment restricted people from buying and selling alcohol. 18 is 6 plus 6 plus 6, which hints at the number of the Antichrist. The Antichrist will restrict people's ability to buy and sell food unless they have taken the mark of the Antichrist, which is why this symbolic figure for the Antichrist, the first commissioner of baseball, took power and was given unchecked power over every person in baseball 666 days after the 18th Amendment was ratified. The first of the 4 pitchers from Fullerton Union High School to pitch a no-hitter pitched for the Washington Senators. The 4th of the 4 pitchers pitched the 4th no-hitter of the season, and this hints at the 44th president returning to the White House in Washington as the Antichrist. All right, one last thing to add here is that there has been investigative reporting in Hawaii and interviews of locals that have reported that the death toll is much higher than the official death toll, and that there is a cover-up going on regarding the death toll. At this time, which is August 19th, the official death toll is 111, which is interesting and is symbolic of the cover-up regarding the death toll for those that have taken the mark of the Antichrist, the Thing, and you know what I'm talking about. And the locals are reporting, which is what makes this a prophetic sign. The reports are, at this time, that the true death toll so far is 480. That can't be a coincidence because, as this video is explaining, the number 48 is symbolic and is pointing to the 48th president, who is from Hawaii. In other words, this prophetic fire has, as has been explained in this video, is pointing to the date it is predicted that the president who is from Hawaii will become the president again, and he will be the 48th president, which is why this first news of the cover-up regarding the death toll is 480. That's not a coincidence. It's not 485, 490, it's 480, because this is in Hawaii and the future 48th president is from Hawaii. It also does make sense that there would be a cover-up, because that is the state of our institutions today. The institutions have collapsed, and there's so much to say regarding why it is the blue team cannot recognize that, and those that in general have a biblical worldview are recognizing that. It is because of the worldview that's diametrically opposed. These two worldviews are diametrically opposed to each other. One worldview believes that humans are basically good, and it is the environment that causes them to do bad things, whereas the opposite is the Christian worldview that understands that the nature of man itself is sinful, it is selfish, it is greedy, it is corrupt, and it is only through the environment that civilizes men. It's the complete opposite. And this is why the blue team gets every single issue wrong, is because they have fundamentally their foundation, their worldview is wrong, and their understanding of man is wrong. And so anyway, that's why these people, the blue team, cannot recognize that the institutions have collapsed. They are hollow shells. They are ghosts of what they once were. They are coasting on fumes, if you will. It's like a bouquet of flowers. Flowers are cut from their source. They look fine for a while, but then they slowly wilt and die. And that's what's happening to America. That is the perfect metaphor. And so, and the blue team, because they don't understand what made these institutions in America and the English-speaking world especially in the first place, which was Christian values, they cannot see the truth about how the institutions are no longer functioning and have collapsed. And so because these institutions that they have taken for granted, and they don't know how they came about in the first place, they're completely ignorant of history and what has made our civilization, and so they are unable to recognize that the institutions have fallen and collapsed because they've been taking them for granted and not understanding and appreciating what their origins are. And this is a beautiful design by God in order to separate the sheep from the goats at this last stage of history in the end times. And this is why those in general that do not understand what is going on presently have taken the mark of the Antichrist. It's symbolic of a test of one's worldview, in other words. Anyway, the reason why the state of Hawaii would be corrupted, just speculation, but it's not that difficult to speculate as to why they would be corrupt. First of all, they're at the behest of the federal government, and that is currently run by a corrupt criminal regime and a totalitarian psychological phenomenon. Let's just leave it at that. And that is the blue team. And Hawaii is one of the bluest states, and therefore is one of the most corrupt states in terms of civic institutions and government. And so it's no wonder that there's so many complaints right now about, first of all, the assistance, the lack of assistance, and the lack of coordination, the lack of functioning of the aid and the effort in Hawaii, but also it's no surprise that there would be this cover-up. And one reason you could speculate is that they just don't want to look bad, because that's how corrupt Democrat blue team politics is. And that's how totalitarian dictatorships are. They cover up, and they never admit to their mistakes, and they intentionally lie to make things not seem as bad as they are when things like this happen, because their primary motive is to retain power. That's the nature of the left. So this is why you see this cover-up. Aliens and UFOs are demons masquerading as aliens and UFOs. Most people's spiritual experiences are demonic deception, especially if they are not a true follower of Christ. Jesus died for you. It is time to repent, which means to change one's ways and turn to God and become a disciple of Jesus. Please leave a like and upvote the video, and once this prediction has come to pass, share this video with everyone you know, and more, don't stop sharing it everywhere in social media. It is essential that everyone immediately read the homepage of my website, TrumpPrediction.com.